The playoffs are here in Class 5A. The final top 16 are official and set. I got postseason previews coming your way in a few days, but today we've got the final top 16 in Class 5A ranked and coming your way just shortly. Again, this is not the RPI rankings. This is our rankings and how our ranker sees it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this compares to the RPI, and I'll be briefly talking about the matchups this week in this video. But again, we got like game-by-game breakdowns coming your way very shortly. So be sure to subscribe to iSports. Turn those post notifications on, the little bell, so that you get alerted when we post so you don't miss a thing. So we got a ton coming your way. Starting, though, in Class 5A at number 16, Sioux City East took a tough loss to Johnston in the final week, 48-13. A really RPI boost possibility for East, but nevertheless, they get in as the 15 seed, and they square off with Dowling Catholic. So our ranker has Sioux City East at 16. RPI had them at 15, so you can kind of compare as we go. I'll tell you off the top of my head where these teams finished in the RPI, so we can kind of compare. But moving on, number 15, Linmar. They are one of two teams, them and Valley, to enter the postseason under 500 at 4-5. Linmar, of course, as the 16 seed, you do the due diligence of heading to Southeast Polk, which is no fun. But hey, you know, at least you give yourself a shot. I think you'd rather be playing on Friday than watching from the couch. So shout out to Linmar for sneaking in and being the very last team into the postseason. At number 14, Prairie. Prairie finishes with a win over West, RPI booster, and Prairie, they will head to Hawkeyes. So Hawkeyes obviously finished the year strong, 7-2. Prairie will head there in a really interesting matchup and a really interesting pod. But we'll carry on and talk about that when we get there. At number 13, Valley. Valley, obviously, the other team to head into the postseason under 500. They started really slow, but we knew if they could string together some wins when they needed them, that they would sneak in, and that last week's win over Ankeny was a huge one on the walk-off field goal. And Valley, they see themselves in the postseason and heading to Pleasant Valley. Interesting matchup there. You're going to have a CIML school heading out east as a big underdog, and we'll see what kind of noise they can make against the Trojans' rush-heavy attack. At number 12, Johnston. Johnston, we just talked about them picking up the huge RPI win over Sioux City East in Week 9, and that earned them a date at Ankeny. Again, 5-4 at 6-3. Interesting matchup there between two CIML schools. Johnston, again, will head to Ankeny as an underdog in that one. At number 11, Bettendorf. Man, Bettendorf just really just struggled, and it really is not going to end up affecting them too much because they still get to host. But, man, they get to host the same team that just went into their place and kind of opened their eyes a little bit. Again, City High. In Week 9, needing a win to get into the postseason, they head to Bettendorf and win 42-21. Just a dominant showing for the Little Hawks. And guess what? They're going to have to do it again. This is the second matchup amongst 3A through 5A teams where we're seeing a repeat matchup in back-to-back weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see how the winning team adjusts, how the losing team adjusts, and then just how it turns out, because that's just a super interesting tactic. I don't know if these coaches were expecting that this was a possibility. But nevertheless, Bettendorf, they're ranked at 11th in our poll, but they're going to host City High squad, who comes in, as you can guess, at number 10. I'll pull up the top 10 right here. Again, City High right there. We just talked about them picking up a huge win to get into the postseason, and now they got to go on the road and do the exact same thing again. At number 9, though, Cedar Falls. Some impressive wins down the stretch for Cedar Falls, notably over Kennedy, and in Week 9 they pick up a huge win over Davenport West. Kind of a scary team heading into the postseason, playing really, really well, and they get to host Kennedy. Another kind of repeat matchup, not back-to-back weeks, but Kennedy and Cedar Falls squared off in Week 8, and now they get to square off in Week 1 of the postseason. So you don't got to worry about the weather, obviously, in the dome, but still it's going to be interesting how those teams adjust after just seeing each other so little time ago. At number 8 in our poll is Ankeny Centennial, and they got a pretty tough draw, I'd say. Ankeny Centennial, in one of the better games this week, will square off with Hawkeyes Northwest. Centennial down the stretch kind of struggled. They hung with some good teams. Obviously, the loss in Week 8 did not help, but they pick up a huge win over Urbandale in Week 9, 41-3, to really vault themselves and into a better RPI seeding, and then they end up drawing Hawkeyes Northwest. So a really good game there, and definitely one I'm thinking about going to. I haven't decided yet where I'm going, but that's one of them. Speaking of an Ankeny school, at number 7 is Ankeny. Going way back to week 1, their win over Centennial is a huge RPI booster looking back, and it probably helped them get a better seed. And the head-to-head in the RPI does matter. But Ankeny finished the season with a huge win over Cedar Rapids, Washington, 49-19. We just talked about them. Ankeny gets to host Johnston, so tons of huge wins throughout the year for Ankeny, and that win over over their rival way back in week 1 turned out to be massive down the stretch as the Hawks get a host, and the Jaguars obviously go on the road. At number 6, Kennedy, just talked about them. They suffered a loss to Cedar Falls in week 8, and they're going to get a shot to avenge that on the road still and everything. Basically the same scenario, but now you're playing to go home. So Kennedy and Cedar Falls, we just talked about them. We'll square off yet again over in Pod A. Heading into our top 5, though, at number 5 is Hawkeyes, who has finished strong at 7-2. They just picked up a win over Council Bluffs Abraham Lincoln, 42-0, and Hawkeyes gets to host a game against Prairie. So an interesting matchup there. Hawkeyes playing at home, one of the better home environments, and that is another game that I'm kind of considering going to. So if you want to see me at your game this week and you're in the Des Moines area, feel free to message me, and maybe you could persuade me one way or the other, because I'm still very much open to where I'm headed this week. At number 4, Pleasant Valley, they finished with a huge win over Linn-Mar, 28-14. 2 ranked teams, and Pleasant Valley ultimately earned a home game against a 4-5 team in Valley. So Pleasant Valley, round 1 of the postseason should be a ton of fun right there. At number 3, Hawkeyes Northwest kind of snuck out of nowhere into our top 3 in the final few weeks. Rightfully so, though. Hawkeyes Northwest has plenty of good wins along the year over Centennial, over Hawkeyes, and they finished the year strong with a 49-7 throbbing of Ames. And Northwest obviously gets to host Centennial, a team they just beat a few weeks ago. So a common theme here in Class 5A is, recent matchups rebirthed, and teams getting a shot to either prove themselves that they are the team to beat, or the team that lost trying to prove that was just a fluke, and they get another shot at avenging a loss, I should say. At number 2, no shocker here, Dowling Catholic. They finished with a 43-9 win over Sioux City North. And as the 2 seed, you get a pretty favorable draw, and I'd say they did get a pretty good one against Sioux City East as the 2 seed. They will face the winner of Johnson Ankeny. So Sioux City East and Dowling will face the winner of Johnson Ankeny to head to the Dome. And your number 1 team, no shocker here, wire to wire, Southeast Polk picks up a win over Des Moines Lincoln, 55-0. Southeast Polk will get to host Linn-Mar, again, one of 2 teams under 500 heading into the postseason. Southeast Polk, the winner of that, will face Kennedy and Cedar Falls to head to Cedar Falls. So that was all I've got for Class 5A rankings. I know these rankings really don't pertain to a whole bunch right now, but this is what we'll use with our graphics and whatnot as these postseason games get underway. But that's all we got for Class 5A rankings. Be sure to tune in middle of this week. We're going to have tons of playoff content coming your way in Class 5A, breaking down each game and telling you who we think is going to win. So be sure to tune into that. Again, my name is Cade Nissen, and Class 5A fans, I'll catch you next time.